Hey, all you true crime fans, this is Mike Ferguson.
And this is Mike Morphin.
And we'd like to invite you to listen to our podcast, Criminology.
Launched in 2017, we've covered a variety of strange cases from murders to missing persons.
We dive into a variety of cases in both the U.S. and abroad.
Some of the cases are ones you may not have heard of, like the Pocatello babysitter murders or the Canal murders.
Other cases we cover are some of the most historic in true crime, like the Tylenol murders and the Lindbergh kidnapping. We also dive into cases that are currently breaking thanks to DNA and forensic genealogy.
Sometimes you'll hear from people connected to the cases, like the interview we did with the brother-in-law of the Golden State Killer, Joseph DeAngelo.
There are close to 200 episodes of Criminology available to binge on right now, including full seasons covering the Zodiac Killer, the Golden State Killer, and Ted Bundy, and new episodes come out every Saturday night.
Subscribe to Criminology today, wherever you listen to your podcast.
You're listening to Beyond Bizarre True Crime, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, Missing Persons, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime, 3 Men and a Mystery, and All Things Crime. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Hey there, I'm CJ, the host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. I am honored to be your host of this episode's Beyond Bizarre True Crime. Before I begin to tell you about this episode's case, I would like to give a little disclaimer. I struggle with cases of animal cruelty and animals dying. I cry during Bambi, and that's a cartoon. This case will have the death of a pet dog, but I promise to glaze over it as quickly as possible when and where I can, and I will not give details about the dog's death. Also, this case has no resolution yet. There's a lot of speculation from law enforcement and from the public in general. I'm going to talk about that. I think it's essential to get ideas out in the universe without making false accusations. Maybe it could even jog the memory of someone who saw something. You just never know. And with that, let's get into it. If you've never lived in the southern states of the U.S., let me tell you a little bit about the summer heat. It's wet and sticky. It feels like you've just been dipped in flavorless syrup. It's nearly unbearable to be outside for too long. And if your air conditioner is broken, you're pretty much screwed. On the positive side, my skin never looked better. And it felt like I was just sweating weight off. I wasn't, but it felt like I was. It was a warm 73 degrees just before midnight on July 28, 2021 in Atlanta, Georgia. Pretty hot for that time of night if you're not used to it. But perfect for doing outside activities, especially if you're a night owl. 40-year-old Katie Janness, a bartender and talented musician, had just gotten home from her shift at work. It was her nightly routine to take her dog for a walk through Piedmont Park. She changed into a pair of black pants and a black t-shirt and then she put the dog's collar and leash on. Her girlfriend of 6 years, Emma, was still working at a nearby restaurant. And this is one of those cases you see where there's discrepancy in the couple's title. Some media referred to Katie and Emma as girlfriends. Others, they were fiancés, and still others called them each other's wives. I don't know how important this detail is or could be, but in Emma's 911 emergency call to police dispatch, she refers to Katie as her girlfriend. The couple lived only a couple blocks from Piedmont Park in Atlanta. Piedmont Park has been touted one of the safest parks in the United States. It's a picturesque 185-acre park. It features walking, jogging paths, tennis courts, 2 ponds, a public swimming pool, and a dog park. Many fun festivities are held at this park, including concerts and Atlanta's Pride events. The park hours of operation are from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily, although the park seems to be somewhat active after hours as well. Very close to Piedmont Park are 4 corner crosswalks, and they're painted with pride flags. This would be at the 10th Street and Piedmont Avenue Northeast, where the Flying Biscuit Cafe resides. A block away from that, maybe not even a whole block, is the entrance to Piedmont Park. The park usually has 30 operational CCTV cameras in strategic places. But for whatever reasons, the night of July 28, 2021, 9 of those cameras were not working. A little after 11:30 p.m. is when Katie decided to walk their dog Bowie, a beautiful pit bull. Many people are frightened by pit bulls. But to be honest, some of the best dogs I've ever had were pits. They're adorable. They're loyal to their owners, and so many of them are not as savage or menacing as they appear. I know a lot has to do with how they're raised. Bowie was a good boy, and a good walking buddy for Katie. By all accounts, Katie and Bowie should have been safe that night. They were safe all the other nights they took their walks. Their route took them by the restaurant Emma worked for a quick hello. Katie said, "I'm just out walking Bowie and then we're heading home." And that was the last time Emma would see Katie and Bowie alive. A CCTV camera near the park seemed to pick up the last footage of Katie as she walked Bowie across the Pride crosswalk. They were headed towards Piedmont Park at 12:09 a.m. Between this time and the time when Katie and Bowie's bodies were discovered around 1 a.m., 6 or 7 people were seen on working CCTV cameras, and they were leaving various entrances and exits of the park. Police went on to local TV stations. They played the CCTV footage of the people walking in and out of the park. Then they asked for all potential witnesses on camera to come in for an interview. And as far as I know, only one of those have come in so far. If you're familiar with this case and you've checked out the CCTV footage, it was the jogger that was seen on camera leaving the park that came in. When Emma's shift ended at midnight, she helped to close up the restaurant, and then she would hop on her bicycle and head home to Katie, their dogs, and their cat. They were her family, but Katie and Bowie weren't home. This was weird. Katie and Bowie should have been home by now. Emma texted Katie, "Where are you guys?" There was no answer. After several more unanswered texts, Emma started to get really worried, so she pinged Katie's phone location. The ping showed Katie at the entrance of Piedmont Park. Katie was not moving anywhere. Her phone just sat there minute after minute. Emma even kept refreshing the location. Finally, Emma thought, Katie must have dropped her phone. So at a little before 1 o'clock, Emma hopped on her bicycle and she headed in the direction of Piedmont Park, where Katie's phone said she was. The lighting around the 10th Street and Charles Allen Drive entrance into the park isn't very good at night, and it's possible the lights are there, but just not operating correctly. Emma thought she could see the shadow of Bowie laying on his side, and this was about 50 yards from the entrance inside the park. Her first thought was that Bowie had been hit by a car and he dragged himself into the park. Laying about 100 feet from Bowie was Katie. As Emma got closer, she saw a very bloody Katie. She got off her bike and dropped it onto the cement. She went to feel for a pulse on Katie. Realizing there wasn't a pulse, she ran to the park entrance to get near some lights. She fumbled for her cell phone and she frantically called 911. The next few minutes of Emma's call would fall under a lot of scrutiny by many. The call is public knowledge. In it, Emma says, "I'm at the entrance of Piedmont Park. I just was searching for my girlfriend because I couldn't find her. She's dead. She's here at Piedmont Park. Please help." To many observers who have listened to Emma's call, they think she sounds too calm, too callous, and too removed from any feelings about Katie at all. At one point, Emma exclaims, "Oh my God, she's dead." Dead. I think it's important to note here that everyone reacts differently to trauma. Maybe this is how Emma reacts in a crisis. She is heard saying to a bystander as they started to gather, "Did you see that? That's my fucking girlfriend." The general public is also speculating Bowie did not attack the killer, which also leads many to think it was someone that Katie and Bowie both knew, like Emma. I'm not sure how we know Bowie didn't attack. Emma's dad believes that Bowie did attack the killer and that there's DNA in Bowie's mouth, which would mean he bit the assailant, right? If this is true, law enforcement is keeping the information close to their vests. After the medical examiner inspected Katie's body, it was determined to have had 50 stab wounds all over it. Some were defensive wounds to her arms and hands. 15 of the stab wounds were to Katie's face. Each of her breasts had been stabbed. She was stabbed in her throat several times and had a stab wound to her back that went all the way through. It damaged her heart and her left lung. The letters F-A-T were carved into her upper torso, although early on, an Atlanta news station claimed the letters carved were F-A-G, and they said that the murder was definitely hate-motivated because Katie was a lesbian. I don't think this was terribly responsible journalism on their part. To this day, we still don't know what the motive was. Carving letters or words into a victim for the psychological gratification of the killer. This action has nothing to do with accomplishing a murder. Katie was also dismembered. There were a couple of her body parts. It's not been disclosed which body parts. I'm assuming maybe a finger or two. But her cause of death was sharp force injuries to her face, neck, breasts, torso, and back. Katie bled out from all of her stab wounds. All 50. Which really seems to be a passionate crime, or at least a very personal crime, which is yet another neon arrow pointing to Katie's girlfriend Emma. And do you want to know what the kicker is? A GoFundMe account was set up in honor of Katie. It raised almost $80,000. A big chunk of it was used by Emma. And that just adds to her suspicion factor. But there's a reason why Emma needed that money. Since Katie's murder, Emma couldn't even go anywhere near Piedmont Park without being accosted by someone who believes she's the one who murdered Katie and Bowie. Due to multiple death threats, Emma had to quit her job and move from the place she shared with Katie and the dogs. So Emma took most all the money and she paid bills, and she bought a condo. The money was supposed to go to a reward fund to find Katie's killer. All of the evidence that the public seems to think they have against Emma is circumstantial at best, and I'm not sure any of it would hold up in court. Did Emma say or act inappropriately on her call to 911? According to some people, she did. But the human psyche is weird. I thought she sounded more like someone in shock. Did her timing using the GoFundMe money suck? Absolutely. But if my life were being threatened and in danger, I would have used the money to get out too. Should she have at least put some of the money towards the reward fund? Of course. What we need to remember, Emma was at work until at least midnight. Katie was seen crossing the Pride crosswalk on camera with Bowie at 12:09 a.m. Emma would have had to ride her bike into the park after work, and then she would have had to somehow ambush Bowie and Katie and kill them both without being seen. I don't believe there's any footage showing Emma riding or walking into Piedmont Park between 12:09 and when she found Katie. 50 stab wounds. That's a lot of work. It would take a lot of energy. Could Emma have worked all day in a busy restaurant, then went to Piedmont Park undetected, snuck up on her girlfriend and their dog, and murder them both with such overkill, such hatred, and then ran out of the park to call police dispatch, all in less than an hour? I'm sure it's possible. But she would have had to ditch her bloody clothes, the murder weapon, and whatever body parts on Katie that were missing. Also, wouldn't she most likely have some cuts on her hand from the knife as well? And if Bowie did bite the attacker, wouldn't Emma have a bite mark on her if she was the killer? I would expect her DNA would be at the crime scene too. Yeah, she just doesn't seem like a viable suspect to me, I'm afraid. There have been some late-breaking details in the case. When the killer wrote FAT on Katie's upper torso, Katie was still alive. She was also alive for most of the torture. The medical examiner was able to determine this because Katie's blood hemorrhaging is ante-mortem. This means that the injuries occurred before death. A former forensic investigator weighed in on Katie's case. They said it looks like the killer took time to pull Katie's pants down and write on her. And there's also a possibility the killer knew what they were doing with a medical instrument. Or perhaps they had a multi-edged tool with them. This former investigator also said the killer would have been drenched in Katie's blood. It took way more time than necessary to simply kill Katie. A forensic psychologist believes the overkill, the sexual targeting, and the mutilation are common to a murderer who is a sadist. The act of carving the letters fulfilled some emotional need the killer had. And all the investigators are thinking it was potentially someone Katie knew. They say a stranger-to-stranger attack and murder seems very unlikely to them. I'm not sure if that's because maybe Bowie didn't attack the assailant, or because of the 50 stab wounds. A former prosecutor of the county Piedmont Park is in believes that the reaction of the victim's dog is noteworthy. The assailant killed the pet as well, and a characteristic of a pit bull breed is to be very protective of the owner. And yet the killer apparently was able to get close enough to disable the dog before killing Katie. It suggests the killer was familiar with Katie and Bowie. Okay, here's the thing with that. Dogs have as different of personalities as people do. My pit bull in Hawaii, he looked like he could rip your head off. But he never met anyone he didn't like, or anyone he didn't lovingly lick. He licked and wagged at everyone. And if you had a car, that dog wanted to go home with you. He didn't care who you were, as long as you drove him somewhere, preferably to his next bowl of food. And as for this being someone that Katie knew a lot of people. She was a bartender. It's her job to be friendly and to get to know people. Atlanta police have asked people to not go to Piedmont Park at night, not until they have a killer in custody. Plus, the police have added extra patrols to the area. The FBI has since joined Katie's case. It's not a cold case in spite of it happening last July. Law enforcement officials and the FBI promise that they're close to solving it. And if they are, they're not sharing more than that. We don't know if they have any suspects or even any persons of interest. And until someone's arrested and put on trial, we will have no unicorn justice for Katie Janness. Rest in power, Katie. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer. You can find me, CJ, on Facebook at Beyond the Rainbow Podcast, or just about everywhere else at Rainbow Crimes. I would love for you to follow, subscribe, and listen to my show, Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. And you can find my show wherever you might listen to your podcasts. And now it is my great pleasure to let you all know the next episode of Beyond Bizarre True Crime will be hosted by Lindsay and Jen from Corpus Delecti Podcast.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. I'm CJ, host of Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. My episodes focus on crimes committed by and against the LGBTQ community. I've covered cases you probably have heard of, such as Matthew Shepard, Brandon Tina, and the Orlando Pulse nightclub massacre, as well as some lesser-known cases like the murder of Ray Hainish, the Australian gay beat murders, and the suspicious disappearance of Lisa Lynn Stone. I cover cases brought to me by listeners like Penny Brummer, who I believe was wrongfully convicted, taboo cases such as lesbian corrective rape and murder in South Africa, and Pray the Gay Away camps. I discuss gay serial killers, women who pretend to be men to hook up with other women, and trans murders. I'm opinionated and uncensored. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but surely I'm someone's shot at tequila. No matter what your gender or orientation in life might be, please join me as I tackle rainbow crimes in search of unicorn justice. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.
Beyond Bizarre True Crime is produced by Mike Morford and Jess Betancourt for AbJack Entertainment, with music by Connor Betancourt. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe wherever you are listening now, and please take a moment to rate and review the show. You can find Beyond Bizarre True Crime on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram with the handle @BeyondBizarreTC. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Beyond Bizarre True Crime Podcast. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests on Beyond Bizarre True Crime do not necessarily represent those of the show's creators, producers, or sponsors. Be sure to tune in on Saturdays for all new episodes of Beyond Bizarre True Crime.